In addition to fetching values from the model data, you can add your own values in the table. For this, you use the Allocations feature of SAP Analytics Cloud, which includes spreading, distributing, and assigning values. Allocation is the process of splitting values derived from source data into multiple values and storing the values in target data. The allocation feature is used in planning and data analysis to gain insights. The spreading, distribution, and assigning operations are ways of allocating values in a table to one or more target cells. These features can help you quickly book new values and adjust existing values in a plan. In spreading operations, the value of a source cell is spread across leaf members. Values are taken from a higher level of a hierarchy and spread at a lower level. You can perform spreading automatically or manually. In distribution, values are changed within a hierarchy by distributing amounts from a source member to leaf members of its siblings. You can move some or all the values from one cell to other cells at the same hierarchical level or to members of a different branch of the same hierarchy. Unlike spreading, distribution subtracts value from the source cell to add it to the target cells. Leaf members that aggregate up to the source cell are decreased proportionally, and leaf members of the target cells are increased proportionally. Using the Assign feature, you can append or overwrite values to target cells without specifying a source cell. Here you choose the amount to assign. The values you assign are not deducted from any other cell that occurs when you use spreading or distribution. Open the Planning panel by right-clicking the cell and selecting Distribute Value. The Planning panel will open on the right-hand side. Select the Distribute option in the What Amount area. Select Recommended Distribution option, Distribute to Date members one level below. It will allow us to distribute the overall value for apparel for 2020 to Q1, Q2, Q3 and Q4. From the cell list, choose whether to overwrite the existing target cell values or append the new values, and in this case we'll use overwrite. Use the driver list to choose how to set the target cell values. Choose input weights and provide the weights values for each dimension member. Then check the figures and select Apply. Redistribute operations in the planning panel lets you change the proportions among a group of cells. You can select a group of source cells that includes the entire amount you want to redistribute. Open the planning panel by right-clicking the cells and selecting Redistribute Values. From the cell list, choose whether to overwrite existing target cell values or append the new values. In this case, we're going to use overwrite to set new target values. Use the driver list to choose how to set the cell values. To set out a ratio between the different apparel products, choose Input Weights. Set values for the target cells, and check the figures, then select Apply. What are cost allocations? Let's start with a personal example. Unfortunately, it's been a long time since I last enjoyed a large group dinner with friends at a restaurant. However, when we did go out as a group, we typically split the bill. It's just easier. Total bill divided by number of credit cards. Is it fair? Sometimes yes, usually no. But it's not practical to go through the check line by line to assign specific costs to each diner. And what about that bottle of wine that was split unevenly? By taking the total cost and assigning an equal weight to each subset of the population, we perform a very simplistic allocation of costs. But why are cost allocations important? Well, in the corporate world, the above scenario is complicated by thousands of variables. If a company wants to better understand the margins of specific products or brands, for example, we can take certain indirect costs and simply divide them by the number of products. This would assign the costs, but like the restaurant example, wouldn't be a good indicator of fairness, as a small product category would incur the same burden as a large one. Fortunately, there are a number of approaches to assign a more representative distribution of costs based on a variety of methods. For actual costs, these allocations may be performed within the ERP system, but not all scenarios may be accounted for. Or there could be a requirement to model potential alternative scenarios. For planning and forecasts, it's common to enter these at a total level. Using a tool like Excel requires a large amount of source data to be loaded and resource-intensive calculations to execute, neither of which are a good recipe for success. A key decision when creating allocation rules is to determine what drives the allocation. In the restaurant example, it's simply total cost, but to extend the analogy, we could have an allocation driver for entries and another for alcohol, where the designated driver is not assigned any of the costs for alcohol. In the corporate world, these drivers could be revenue, subscribers, headcount, square footage of retail space, or any combination of mixed drivers. These permutations make performing the allocation process via Excel impractical due to the number of drivers needed to fully allocate even a single account. SAC provides an effective way to create and manage these allocations. Any user simply selects the context of the allocation they'd like to perform within the report they're viewing. Let's take a closer look at a multi-step allocation. In the context of profitability analysis, to determine the appropriate margin at a customer and product level, we need to assign a proportion of these costs to each customer, then assign each product the customer purchased a percentage of that cost, at the same time reducing the cost from the source. Remember, we've not generated any additional costs, just reassigned a portion to the appropriate profit center. Therefore, we need to balance the equation by unloading the source. So, for example, Company X spends $50,000 a month on advertising their line of organic health bars, which are sold exclusively to 3 health food stores for a total revenue figure of $400,000. We want to assign this cost proportionally to the store and product level. First, we allocate 100% of our $50,000 advertising expenses to our 3 stores, weighted by revenue. Then we take step 1 amount and allocate to just 2 flavors of health bar. So the chocolate healthy bar is assigned 60% of the $31,250, which is $18,750. To calculate the profit margin on selling chocolate healthy bars to store A, we need to account for that $18,750 related to advertising cost. Of course, this is just one simple expense line for illustration. To perform this allocation across many expense lines for potentially thousands of customers, 10,000s of products, it's a significant undertaking that a tool like Excel simply can't manage. We could write these rules into a database and have it crunch the numbers, but that would require a significant investment in time and effort to ensure data consistency. And without even more engineering, it becomes an inflexible and inexpensive operation to maintain as a solution. So how does it work in SAP Analytics Cloud? Well, SAP Analytics Cloud takes a novel approach to this financial function by providing a built-in allocation rule engine that's flexible, scalable, and user-driven. By pushing the number crunching to the underlying HANA Cloud database, these complex scenarios can be executed in minutes by any financial analyst. The results are saved to private view and audited for clarity of cost movements over time, all without writing a single line of code. We provide 3 inputs to the allocation rule. The source, where's the aggregate value taken from? The driver, the denominator for the allocation, and the target, where are we directing the allocation to? By creating multiple modular steps, we can build sophisticated allocation rules by simply loading these steps into a new rule. End users can selectively run these allocations, either as a whole or based on their current viewpoint in a report. This affords maximum flexibility to analyze multiple business scenarios. This feature also allows forecasters to only enter values at a high level and let the system calculate the spread of these costs, which saves huge amounts of time and effort while providing a more detailed, realistic projection of future margin. The image shows running the allocation from within the SAC story. This is just one example of how SAP Analytics Cloud makes the role of a financial analyst easier, asset important during financial close and forecasting periods. SAC also eliminates error-prone manual calculations by leveraging the cloud to scale up the computer-intensive task of multidimensional allocation while providing a consistent, secure user experience across the organization. In this video, you'll create and apply an allocation process to take values from source dimension members and assign them to target dimension members. From the main menu, choose Create, then Process, and select Allocation. Provide a name and a description, and select the underlying model. To create a step in an allocation process, open the appropriate process and select Create Step in the Overview page or Create Step in the toolbar. In the Create Step dialog, enter a name and an optional description for the step. If necessary, specify the model for the step. And in the Target section, select a target dimension from the list. We need to enter data, select a source, driver and target. Click the Add button on the top right-hand side of the page to create a new allocation rule. Now select Source as IT expense, Driver as direct assignment, and Target as shorts. Save the step details by selecting the Save icon located in the top right corner. Now open the Op Income Model story. From either the Tools tab or the drop-down list, select Allocate Values, Execute Allocations. Provide the allocation process name you created earlier and click on Execute. Ensure the forecast version is selected, confirm the scope of allocation and click on Continue. Now wait until the allocation process is completed, and once it has, you can see the value is now allocated completely to shorts. From the main menu, choose Create, then Process and select Allocation. Provide a name, description and select the underlying model, and again click Create. Click Create Step. In the Create Step dialog, enter a name and an optional description for this step. In the Source section, select a source dimension from the list, and in the Target section, select a target dimension from the list. To keep the values of the source cells, select Keep Source. Then those source values will be copied and allocated to the targets instead of being reduced to 0. But to reduce the value of the target members to 0 at the start of the step, select Overwrite Target and click Create. Next, we'll create allocation rules by specifying source dimension members, drivers and target dimension members. Choose the plus icon to create a new allocation rule. The Create Allocation Rule dialog appears. You can select to choose whether to display the description ID or ID and description of dimension members. Select a source member, a driver and one or more target members. Your selections are listed in the Selected Allocation Rules section. Choose Create. The new rule is now listed in the table. Click the Save icon. Executing an allocation process. Now, in a story, add a table based on the model for which you want to perform allocations. Select the Allocate icon and choose Execute Allocation Process from the drop-down menu. In the Execute Allocation dialog, select the allocation process you want to execute. Choose the version on which to run the allocation process. In the Confirm Scope of Allocation dialog, choose how to filter the members that are affected by the allocation. And now the allocation process begins to run. You can wait for it to finish, or you can select Run in Background to return to the story.